You did not fail to master it. The thing you are worst at, the conversation where your voice cracked and your composure simply left you, the practical task your hands botched while someone watched, the feeling that flooded in at the wrong hour and turned you into someone childish, barbaric, unrecognizable. That was never a gap in your training. Something in you refused to let you become good at it. Refused on purpose, quietly, structurally, for reasons no one ever explained to you. You have spent your whole life assembling a self out of what you do well. The competence you lead with, the room you can read in a heartbeat, the problem you take apart in your sleep. And everything else you have folded into a drawer marked shame. But the part you folded away is not the broken part of you. It is the only part still telling the truth. Here is the question the marketplace will never let you ask. Why would a mind build, on purpose, a single room it then refuses to let you furnish? Why polish 3 faculties to a mirror shine and leave the 4th deliberately primitive, deliberately raw? Hold that. We will come back for it. Carl Jung mapped the psyche into 4 ways of meeting reality: thinking, feeling, sensation, intuition. And then he said the thing almost no one wants to hear about themselves. You do not get all 4. You get one that becomes your genius, the faculty you trust, the blade you lead with, the one that earns your living and your self-respect. Jung called it the superior function. And across a lifetime you fuse with it so completely that you stop experiencing it as a function at all. You experience it as you. And then there is the 4th, the exact opposite of your genius, the one that stayed in the dark while the others grew up. If you live in your thinking, it is feeling that ambushes you in public. If you live in the warm authority of feeling, it is some cold calculation you fumble like a child. It is slow, it is touchy. It does not answer to your will, your calendar, or your discipline. It arrives when it wants, drowns what it drowns, and leaves you ashamed of the sheer size of your own reaction. This is the part the entire world has told you to fix. This is the inferior function. And it is not your defect. It is the crack the marketplace is desperate to seal, because it cannot sell you what waits on the other side of it. Marie-Louise von Franz spent her life at the Jung Institute in Zürich, watching this 4th function quietly wreck accomplished, polished people, and quietly save a few of them. In her lectures on Jung's typology, she describes it with a precision that should make you uneasy. It is archaic, she says, a survival from an older, rougher version of you that never learned manners. It keeps its own time, and its time is slow. You cannot hurry it, you cannot drill it into competence the way you drilled your strength into brilliance. And if you try to drag it up to the level of your genius, von Franz warns, something stranger happens. Your genius itself begins to sink. The psyche works like a seesaw. Lift the swamp, and the mountain goes under. So the dream the optimization industry sells you, the one where you sand your weakness down to nothing and step out a flawless, well-rounded operator, is not merely hard, it is structurally impossible. And here is the part von Franz needs you to sit inside, in your own skin, at your own worst hour. That clumsy, mortifying, uncooperative function is not a wall. It is a door. Precisely because it never got civilized, never got broken to the ego's harness, it stayed wired directly into everything in you that is not conscious. Your superior function is too adapted, too clean, too obedient. It has no way down. It was built to manage the surface, so it can never reach the depths. But the inferior function, von Franz says this almost flatly, is the door through which the figures of the unconscious walk into a life. Read that again with your own life in your hands. The exact place where you feel most barbaric, the grief that embarrasses you with its size, the rage that arrives out of all proportion, the helplessness that makes you feel 4 years old in a grown body. That is not you malfunctioning. That is the unconscious using its only entrance. The one door the ego never managed to bolt, because the ego was never strong enough there to build a lock. This is why the most competent people are so often the most haunted. You raised a fortress out of your strength, and a fortress by design has no doors. The superior function builds a self that is admirable, efficient, and completely sealed. Jung had a word for what happens to a personality that lives entirely inside its own strength: inflation. The ego swells, mistakes itself for the whole of the psyche, and begins very quietly to suffocate. Nothing can reach it, nothing can move it, nothing new can get in, and so nothing in it can ever grow. And the soul, von Franz understood, would rather humiliate you than let you suffocate. So it holds the fourth door open by holding it broken. Every time your weakness erupts and shames you in front of the very people whose respect you are counting on, that is not the psyche failing at its job. That is the psyche refusing to let you finish the fortress. It would rather see you undone in public than sealed in private. It would rather you be humbled than dead. This is the most uncomfortable sentence in the whole of Jung's typology, so I will not soften it. There is no dignified version of this descent. You do not get to go down gracefully, competence intact, narrating your own growth from a safe ledge above the water. It happens through the one function that makes you look like a fool, and it only works while it is still making you one. The moment you have it handled, polished, presentable, the door has swung shut again. Your weakness is not the price of admission, it is the admission. So we come back for the question we left open. Why would the psyche build one room on purpose and refuse for a lifetime to let you furnish it? Because it was never a room. It was an exit. Everything the self-improvement machine sells is a way to make the superior function larger, sharper, faster, more total, more you. And every increment of that is one more course of brick on a wall that is already slowly killing you. What Jung and von Franz are pointing at is the opposite motion entirely. Not up and out toward mastery, but down and in through the wound. Jung called the long labor of becoming whole individuation. And it does not run through your strengths. It runs through the swamp. Because the swamp is the only ground in you still connected to the deep water of the unconscious. The gold the old alchemists hunted was never hidden in the gleaming metal. It was buried in the base matter, the rejected, the despised, the part the work throws out as waste. You are the alchemist, and the waste you keep throwing out is you. There is a last move here, and it is not a fix. It cannot be, because a fix would only seal the door again. Jung called it the transcendent function, and you do not perform it. You suffer it into being. You hold the tension. You let your brilliant, capable ego stand inside the same body as the weeping, fumbling, 4-year-old function. And you refuse to let either one win the argument. You do not optimize the weakness. You do not exile it back into the drawer. You stay in the unbearable middle, humiliated and competent at once, until something that is neither one begins to rise between them. A center that is no longer your strength and no longer your shame. That center has a name, and you have been circling it your entire life. It is the self, what you were before you became good at anything. So tonight, when the feeling floods in at the wrong hour, when your hands fumble and your voice cracks, and the old shame rises with it. Do not reach for the technique. Do not reach for the draw. Stay in the water. It is cold and it is dark, and it will not flatter you for a second. It was never the broken part of you. It was the part still telling the truth, and the truth was a door. You were never meant to master it. You were meant to walk through.